this is going to be a transformational project for Ontario, for the Greater Toronto, and something that will actually compete with regional networks as we have in Paris.
Hello, I'm Giles Gherson, and this is Toronto Talks, the voice of Toronto's business community. What are we talking about? Each episode is a conversation with top business leaders about how they're shaping growth, driving competitiveness, and building up our economy. It's about what they believe it will take to make sure the Toronto region remains one of the world's great global cities. Here's today's conversation. Michael, welcome to Toronto Talks podcast. We're delighted to have you with us for a great conversation, I think, about really transit and transportation, because you are running Alstom Americas. So you have a pretty big portfolio here, Canada, the US, I think, and Mexico.
And Latin America.
Latin America.
Thank you, Giles.
It's a very big remit. What's most important is the GTA, of course, and all of that.
Of course.
So we'd like to talk to you a little bit about that and how we're progressing on our transportation system, because as you know, certainly at the Board of Trade, we spent a lot of time on congestion and how to relieve congestion. We put a 5-point plan to the city for relieving congestion, and they're starting to work on that. But there's no question, transit is the core to solving our congestion problem. So that's in our mind, and that's why we're so excited to have you with us. Before we get into all of that, maybe start with you and Alstom, the company. Not all of our listeners will be completely familiar with the role that Alstom plays in Ontario, in the GTA. So maybe tell us a little bit about what that role involves, what your role involves, and how big is the business that you're responsible for?
So Alstom is the largest private sector company in transit, pure player in mobility, as we call it. So that's anything to do with trains, metros, tramways, light rail, signaling system, obviously, life cycle of all of that, from delivering equipment and solutions to complete life cycle, maintenance, overhauling, spare parts, operating and maintaining assets. We do all of that, and we're the only one.
Is that a recent phenomenon? Because you often think of a company that's manufacturing, say, rolling stock, that other companies would do the planning, the operations, the maintenance, the repair, but you do all of that.
Well, we've gradually moved into that. Obviously, we are known mainly for our rolling stock business.
Yes, that's what I think of Alstom for.
But today, if I speak about my region, which represents today around a quarter to a third of the group in terms of revenue, order intake, and so on, the rolling stock activity is around half of what we do. The other half is service, it's signaling, it's turnkey contracts, being involved in full turnkey as planners and obviously execution company.
Is that shifted over time? I mean, I'm assuming that at one point Alstom was really mainly a rolling stock company, but has gradually taken on these other dimensions.
Yeah,
But how is that moving over time?
So, I mean, obviously, our strategy has been to grow into the complete space of mobility, as we see there's a lot of value for customers, obviously for our shareholders, but that's where we wanted to go. We had a major step into that progress, which was the acquisition of Bombardier Transportation in 2021. Bombardier was a very strong franchise in terms of servicing. Obviously, they were also a train manufacturer. So integrating all of that gave us a big boost into the strategy that we had, and this has been now our strategy to be a pure player operating on the life cycle of transit systems, rail systems, as we say also in the US. That's where we want to be. There's tremendous value for the ecosystem, for the customers, for our suppliers to have a partner that has such a scale and obviously such a depth into the industry.
And, the acquisition of Bombardier that you mentioned, that must have had a huge impact on your footprint in Ontario, in Canada, compared to what you had before. So the next question, I think that's probably true, but maybe you can tell us. But then where does Canada fit in terms of, the portfolio in Latin America and in the U.S. I mean, the U.S. obviously is a very large market. So
Yeah.
where do we fit in exactly?
The acquisition of Bombardier was really driven by complementarities, like synergies between the Alstom portfolio and the Bombardier portfolio. And we found really a perfect match. Bombardier was very strong where we, as Alstom, were weak. North America was one of those. Bombardier was originally is a Canadian company, obviously. Is had deep roots in Canada and the US. Alstom was present in Canada and the US, but much smaller scale. So that's the illustration of what we did through this deal, which actually bring two companies that had a lot of complementarities, geographically speaking, but also from a product standpoint.
Yeah, I'm going to say it sounded like very similar. Yeah.
Yeah, the products were similar but different. They were covering different strength. Alstom was more present on metros. Bombardier has been very present on commuter rail and on obviously light rail. So we had a portfolio which was really working well together, and that was one of the main drivers of putting the company together. By the way, what we saw here in North America happened in a few other geographies where complementarity was good, both from a product standpoint and from a geography standpoint. So that was the main driver for the deal. As far as our identity in North America, since that was your question, this new group together became the biggest and the biggest and the best, I would say, in many ways in North America. The largest supplier of new cars, obviously, with a footprint in Canada and the US that's quite unique. We have 5 factories here in Canada. 3 of them.
You've got Thunder Bay, Kingston, Brampton.
We have La Pocatière in Quebec.
Right.
And we have a few other sites which are of smaller importance. We have 2 main sites in the US, Plattsburgh, which was a former Bombardier, and Hornell, which was former Alstom. And that's basically a strong manufacturing footprint with very...
they've got Buy America in the U.S., right?
Exactly.
And so that's driven a lot of investment into the U.S. from, I think, all over the world. Because if you want to bid for a, metro, whether it's Amtrak or a city project, you have to manufacture in the U.S. So that...
Yeah, Buy America has been there for a long time.
I know.
So it's a reality that has driven Bombardier to actually go south of the border. Yeah. Alstom had acquired the Hornell site already from the early 2000s, and but these are sites which went through very complex periods, almost shut down many times in the cycle. Today they are absolutely full, both south of the border and obviously here in Canada. In Canada, we have 5,000 people today, which is quite significant as a company. We're the biggest, in transit, which is... Ontario is the biggest province for us. It's more than 2,800 people today, and it's growing. Quebec is the second one, and we have teams, obviously, in building trains, rolling stock, servicing trains. Here in Ontario, we have a big crew operating and maintaining the GO and UP services for Metrolinx. So we are basically,
because Up Express, I mean, the old Bombardier, not the old, but the Bombardier trains that you've taken over essentially for GO, right? Those were Bombardier built. But the Up Express was a completely different manufacturer, wasn't it?
It's a different manufacturer.
We still service them.
We actually operate and maintain trains. In North America, we're the largest operator, a private operator of trains. We have properties all across the US and Canada that we do operate. So the people that welcome riders every day, users every day, are our employees. They wear a Metrolinx shirt or a Metrolinx shirt here. But these are people that are employed and are on our payroll.
Okay, that's interesting.
The drivers for the GO locomotives every day, the conductors are our people.
I hadn't realized that.
Employed by Alstom, trained by Alstom, using Alstom management systems, Alstom operating systems. And that's, obviously all the maintenance activity behind all those trains are done by Alstom people on behalf of Metrolinx. Obviously, we're a silent partner to the users, but we are basically managing this service.
And much of a change from, when Bombardier presumably had a similar role and then you took it over, seamless or different approach?
So first of all, we liked very much that side of the business. Alstom was not as present in operating. We are present in manufacturing, but not as operating. And we like this side of the business because we, again, as a pure player, we know, we hear, we're part of receiving the feedback from users. We are basically tied to the hip with Metrolinx, for example, in terms of delivering a good service to the users. Service is what's going to drive people to use transit, quality of service.
Yeah.
And so being directly involved in that gives us a lot of feedback, a lot of, value in terms of how we design our trains, in terms of how we maintain them, and obviously the other side of that.
You was taking the whole thing, right?
Well, we understand it from the user to the agency, to the authority, to the government's, position in all of that. So it's very valuable for us to be part of that. The other side is that we have decided to really professionalize this business of operating and maintaining trains. A lot of agencies are doing this by themselves for a very long time.
Well, TTC does it.
And TTC does that by themselves. But there's a lot of value in companies like ours to actually, bring the know-how we have of those trains and systems and actually build on that, build a very professional workforce. And also build processes and tools which are, the best and up to date, and that are really driving incremental improvement every day. What we do that for building trains, we have lean systems that deliver better value. The same systems can and do apply to operation or maintenance. When we apply that know-how to operation and maintenance, we drive better service. We drive better service in terms of operation frequency, safety, passenger satisfaction. We drive better service in terms of maintaining the trains at a lower cost. All of that stands on the backbone of very strong processes, tools that we have developed for the company and that we are implementing every day to all of these activities.
I mean, a couple of things, I guess, come from that. One, global best practices. Since you operate around the world, you can bring, presumably, global best practices to a focus here in Ontario. Second of all, from a commercial perspective, it sort of makes sense because you have continuous revenue from that side of the operation, as opposed to when you're building something, you get the contract, you build, you're paid, you're done, right? Gap, maybe another contract comes along. This way, as a company, you get a much better revenue flow.
Obviously, every deal has to be good for both parties. Absolutely. So we do see value for us in terms of, having more steady revenue flows and so on. It's also a lot of responsibilities. Yeah. We are not here for a deal and then we run away.
No, it's very interesting because, when Infrastructure Ontario was created, a number of years ago, it was to apply that model to buildings. We build hospitals, we build, courthouses, we build, all kinds of infrastructure. And so integrating the sort of the design, build, operate, maintain all in one made sure, I think the idea was it made sure that the contractor who was designing and building would have a real stake in the operations. Therefore, how do you build in order to take it so that you want to reduce your costs as an operator, right? Or in maintenance, so you build maybe a bit differently than if you're going to hand off the project to somebody else. So there was a view to be really great synergies in that model. And now what you're saying is you've applied that model really to horizontal infrastructure, to
transit and to mobility in general. Yes, that's exactly the idea. Is that we, being a player in all of that allows us to have very deep relationships with our customers. Understand their issues. Again, being an operator helps us understand issues of operator.
We see them every day.
What they feel. We know what we are good at, what we need to be better at. We know what processes are not working well, and we can bring that. All of that in the context of scarcity of people as well. Many agencies can't really cultivate the skill set that they need.
They're too small.
They're too small. They're too scattered. We can bring that. I'll give you an example. We won a contract for Metrolink in Los Angeles last year to operate and maintain the whole Los Angeles greater region. We brought a crew from Canada. We brought a crew that had basically experience running a system here in Toronto. We brought them to Los Angeles. Today, they're leading a pack of around 700 people that are basically delivering service every day. That's the strength of having a company like us growing, becoming a real player. And it comes with a lot of responsibility.
Pools of talent, though, right?
Exactly. Pools of talent, processes that have been tested, that are working, tools that are basically delivering value every day. That's what we can do with scale, and this is what we want to continue to develop. It's not that we want to displace agencies and authorities who want to run their systems, not at all. We are continuing to develop, inject technology, inject innovation in all of that, because we can do it at scale, and we can do that cross agencies. That brings a lot of value in the new world of partnership that we have in front of us.
I mean, it's interesting because I will say that since COVID, I don't hear many complaints about Go. I really don't. People have complaints about the system in general, perhaps, of the transit, service in general. But I don't hear that. I'm wondering what sort of, I'm assuming, therefore, some of the things that you were just talking about have led to service improvements and customer satisfaction on the Go system, from what you're saying.
I mean, first of all, we have to be mindful, and you should be very proud of that. We have a system that has world-class performance. 99% on-time performance.
That's impressive.
It's very impressive. It's an old system, old in the sense, it's...
Well, it's not electric, for example. So electric is much faster.
Exactly.
Start and, we're coming to stations more quickly, leaving quickly.
Exactly.
Acceleration times. So how have you managed to do that with diesel?
So obviously, maintaining this high level of performance of the system is what guarantees customer satisfaction. No one wants to wait for too long. They want, or they stick to the timetable, or they take their car, as you just said. So with Metrolinx, and Metrolinx is a big part of that. Obviously, they are the authority above that. We work for them. They direct service to our crews. But with them, we have really developed a very good way of operating, a very good collaboration. And we had, for example, a couple of service increases last year, both episodic for specific events like the Jays the World Series,
for sure.
Or more long-term with the return to work after the summer. And these were planned. They were, tested. Metrolinx and us worked together to get to this objective. We made it. It was well delivered.
Did you need new rolling stock for that, or did you just use?
No, we actually worked on maintaining better so that we had more fleet available, so that we could work on that. The other side, which is important, and you probably know that we are involved in the Go expansion project on the on-core.
Well,
we are basically
that includes the electrification project?
Electrification, new signaling. Yeah. And obviously with some partners, we are basically working on this project, which is about double tracking on the system, electrifying and so on. There's going to be a new fleet coming at some point in the future. All of that, being part of that, being the operator and maintainer, allows us with Metrolinx to find solutions. We've been working for the last 3 years on planning, so we can get to the best possible solution. Which corridor needs to be electrified first? Where do we put the ETCS solution, the new signaling that will allow a headway to be shorter, that will allow the system to be much safer in terms of operating? All of that is basically enabled by great partnership, because we're here for good. We're not here for a deal.
What do we think? I mean, the electrification and expansion system, and again, double tracking, because currently I think you still run into the CN rail, I think.
Yeah.
The freight rail has priority on the track. It's their track. So it's hard to run a really rapid system when you've got to move over for freight trains, which is the way the system was designed. But having a double track means presumably you'll have, seamless service without having to, go into a siding or what have you. When was all of what you've described, when will our listeners sort of see that? I mean, because as you know, with some of the projects we've had that have dragged on interminably, we won't name names, but we all know what they are. There's obviously some skepticism about when they hear about big projects, will I see it in my lifetime?
So I think Metrolinx has taken a very different approach to this one, and I praise them for that. They really wanted to select partners who could work with them, and today we're co-located in a big office on Adelaide Street with Metrolinx, where we're doing a lot of planning. These kind of projects work because of proper planning. We understand what's the best possible sequence of doing the work, what's the best use of money in the short and long term. All of that is really a matter of bringing the best experts who work together and not fight. When you're in a traditional contracting mode,
Get a lot of battles.
you fight. When you're basically in a collaborative mode like we are today on Go, we get that done. It took 3 years of really deep planning, and this is what we've been doing with Metrolinx and trying to benchmark different things and find the right sequence. We're getting to the point where we're starting today to deliver some of the projects, both on the civil side with double tracking in some sections, and obviously with the first ETCS work, which are starting today. This is a 15-year program.
I was sort of wondering what is this?
It's going to be a 15-year program altogether, but
so like 2040 type of thing.
Yeah, probably around that. But obviously, with the biggest bang for the buck at the beginning. So trying to find, for example, which lakeshore is bringing the best benefit, how to address the Union Station, bottleneck, which is a complex one.
And a fair bit of work's going on there now, as I understand it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
On being able to accommodate.
So I think you will see benefits of all of that coming sooner than you've seen in other projects, which were more traditional contracts.
Kind of incrementally.
Exactly. It's going to be incremental. It's going to be well planned. It's going to be communicated. I think Metrolinx is doing a great job at explaining what they do and why our station closed or why our section closed. This communication helps people understand there's work being done today that will benefit in the long run. And we're very proud of being part of that, because this is going to be a transformational project for Ontario, for the Greater Toronto, and something that will actually compete with regional networks as we have in Paris or
right, which is the RER.
Exactly. That, turn commuter into regional. I hate the word commuter. I love the word regional.
Well, I mean, when you've got a region with 8 million people, which is what the GTHA currently is, it's not a commuter thing. It is a regional.
Yeah.
And we've been pushing as an organization at the Board of Trade for integrated service, for example. We pushed hard for integrated fares, which we got from the provincial government a couple of years ago. That was a great step forward, really helpful step forward. Now we need integrated service. And I think that's going to be a big leap forward. But then you add to that the kind of service improvements you're talking about. I think you can see a very different future. I was really struck by some numbers that both of us have heard today, which was that maybe you were aware of it, I wasn't, but that in Toronto, something like 37% of Torontonians are inclined to take the transit. In Paris, it's not 37%, it's 3%, I think. In London, it's 69%. So you think about that, that's 1.5 million. If we were to kind of move to Paris or London numbers, that's 1.5 million more passengers. That would have a huge impact on congestion. So, you can see where this is going in terms of the promise of better transit, better regional rail could have a big, big impact on the way our society operates and the way the economy operates.
Yeah, I mean, a line like the Rockets is carrying more people than the 400 highway. It's a line like line 1 is equivalent to 26 lanes on a highway at
imagine. Yeah.
So
people don't see it that way, but
exactly. And no one questions the investments on road and the fact. I mean, what's the return on an investment on road?
I mean, it's incalculable almost. Yeah.
But everybody's challenging. Is transit profitable? Is a highway profitable? How do you calculate the highway profitability? We should apply the same thinking to transit. Transit is what connects a region like that, and is what allows people to commute fast, to be in different places. With the return to work, people have different ways of getting to the office. It's not morning time, 8 o'clock and back.
Oh, it's changed dramatically.
It's changed dramatically. So all of that needs to be taken into account in the new systems that we are building, interconnected. We need a better interconnection between the different modes so that you can jump from a regional train to a subway to a light rail. That's what's going to make the Greater Toronto so special in North America. It's because all the ingredients are here, and there's also political drive for
and will. Well, I mean, it's interesting because, when you think about the way people used to think about mobility or connectivity 30 years ago, it was abundance. It seemed like ample transit, there was ample roads, it was abundance, right? Take your pick, do what you want to do. Now it's a scarcity mentality, right? The roads are clogged, transit isn't big enough, and regional rail isn't big enough. So everyone has this kind of scarcity mentality. That has a huge impact psychologically on investment in our economy, people's desire to move around our region, to go to entertainment events or sporting events or visit their family. We've done some polling to suggest that people are really pulling back on those kinds of things, including being at the workplace, their inclination to be at the workplace because of just these constraints. So what you're describing is quite a dramatic shift if we can get back to an idea of abundance in terms of opportunity to travel across the region. Before I let you go, since we're running out of time, just from, it's very interesting what you've had to say, but how did you get into this? You've had a variety of different roles before taking on this one, not always in the transportation system. Is that right?
Yeah.
So how did you get into this?
I'm actually a rookie. I've been in mobility only for
you're sounding great.
For 5 years. So I spent most of my career in the energy sector, and I came to this opportunity driven by two things. First of all, the integration of the two companies right in the middle of COVID was a very interesting challenge that I wanted to be part of.
Yeah.
And it was, I said that...
You were at Alstom before, so you knew...
I was at General Electric, which then was, which acquired one Alstom business in the sector. So I spent a long time in GE. But I moved into mobility driven by that specific opportunity. I had been involved in large integration processes of, companies post-merger or acquisition. I was interested by that. The other side was, this is a sector that, is about very complex projects and fairly similar to what I had gone through in the energy sector. But I like what it does immediately to the society. When you've done
the impact
power stations for a long time, it's important. It feeds energy to the system.
But you have to explain it to people.
Exactly. But when it comes to helping make, transit systems more reliable, having better vehicles and so on, I loved that idea that, the impact that we have day in, day out on the communities we serve. In Alstom, we have this strategy of what we call multi-local, or, home countries where we operate are important for us. Canada is a home country to Alstom. US is a home country to Alstom. We wanted to be strong in these geographies, and the challenge was given to me that I was very much attracted by it.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing all of this roll out in the coming years, but thank you for the conversation. I've learned a lot. I hope our listeners have as well. So thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me, and obviously for helping or allowing me to speak on behalf of the 5,000 Canadian employees we have here. And
well, I think it's great because, I think, Alstom is still probably not as well known as it will be because it's only been 5 years since you took over a lot of these operations from
Exactly.
But
no, it's important, and it also helps us attract talents and
which is good.
Get people excited about all the things we're doing in the region and in Canada in general. So, thanks.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Toronto Talks, conversations with the leaders shaping the region's economy. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts.